8,004 words, 50 pages, 3 acts. I wrote a film in 24 hours, taking what was considered to be my worst work, reshaping it, contorting it to be what I wanted it to be, until I was left with a full-length series pilot, and I recorded the whole thing. Writing a film is far from an easy process. These things usually take weeks, months, and even years before they're finished. But I didn't have that luxury. I wanted to have what I failed to write in the past, and I wanted it now. The film I wanted to write goes under the title of Last Breath, an idea that has been through 3 screenplays, 1 short film, and 2 novels, none of them capturing the entire scope of what I wanted this story to have. But I needed a plan. My entire plan was to take 6 days and brainstorm enough ideas for the story, so when Saturday rolled around, I could sit down and crank out 50 pages without getting stuck in the dirt. Knowing from experience how difficult it can be to write a single page, let alone 50 of them, I was going to need a lot of material. A lot of material I already had. You see, having gone through several drafts already, I already had a vague idea about the story. For example, I knew who the main character was. I knew some of their backstory. I was already familiar with their beliefs. I knew about the world this character was living in, but that was about it. Besides the main character, I had nothing. No clear sense of direction, no antagonist, no secondary characters. I had no meaning to this story. I had to keep digging. Without time, it was a matter of throwing ideas at a wall until I found what would stick.
Okay, we're back, like a week later. Throughout the week, I'd been taking notes, sort of a quick brainstorm over what I should be actually writing about during this film. And I have hundreds, like no joke, hundreds of jot notes, like 5 pages worth of just scattered ideas, pretty much what I talked about in my last video. But these are all centered around what this whole pilot script is going to look like.
I reread all the drafts I had previously written. I watched the short film. I found scripts online that had a similar feeling to the idea I was making, and I borrowed ideas from it, creating what was starting to look like the ramblings of a madman, because they were. But I knew all these sources had the story I was looking for. It was just a matter of pulling it out of the swamp.
I don't think I mentioned before that after that 7-minute short film, a couple years later, I rewrote it as a 20-minute short film, and that one was so much better. Like, it was just damn good. But it was flawed. The idea for the story I was going to try to tell was simply too big of a scope for a 20-minute short film, which is why we're coming back at it now with like a 60-minute pilot idea.
Referring to the second rewrite of Last Breath, it followed the story of a young teenager surviving in a post-apocalyptic wasteland being reclaimed by nature as he rampages his way through the brutal world to repair his broken guitar. It's an odd idea, I know, but it was unique, and it had a solid first draft. The story followed Blake on a journey to restring his guitar, but that's not what the story was about. The story was a tale about survivor's guilt. It was a story about foolish situations we get ourselves into when we make decisions based off negative emotions. It was a story about Blake overcoming the deaths of his twin siblings. That's what made it compelling, but the problem was that it was too fast. 20 minutes is barely enough time to make a coffee, let alone overcome years of trauma. That was this story's major flaw. It needed to be fleshed out.
With all that information now known, there's already a good foundation for this story to build off of. You've got our main character who's dealing with some sort of survivor's guilt, and he's trying to overcome that. That's his need. What he wants in the story is to sort of get revenge on all these people. He's simply trying to find an outlet for his anger, which is caused by his survivor's guilt. As for the rest, I'm not really sure where I want to go quite yet, because I don't want to fall into the same trap as the first film where it's just a character walking around the forest for several minutes on end. We don't want to fall into that trap, so we need some sort of action to follow the film on. We need some external conflict that actually works rather than just internal conflict. So I got this board set up behind me, like this big old board, like I've shown in videos before. Most of the time it's empty because it's for aesthetic, but we're going to use it today, and that's what we're going to work on right now. So step 1. Now step 2. So for the script we're working on, each act is broken up into 9 different cue cards. Now, that is just simply whenever I was working on a feature film. We can cut that down to less because each act is only going to take up about 15 minutes. So for that, we probably only need about 5 cards, giving us like 1 note for every 2 minutes of screen time. I have it broken up into 4 different acts, even though Act 2 is simply 1 act, because when you're watching TV, they have commercial breaks. After Act 1, they're going to cut to a commercial break, and then after Act 2, Part 1, it gets to the midpoint, and then that's when there's another like hook. Every act ends with a hook because, you know, every television network wants people to watch all the commercials just to see what happens, and we're going to follow that pretty closely. Okay, so this is what I've been working on throughout the entire week. This whole list, it's everything. It's a mood board, it's an idea board, it's a brainstorm. It's got everything related to the plot, everything related to the characters, to the tone. This messy document is going to be everything that the film is. All we have to really do is work through it and sort some of the ideas, because this simply just acts like an outlet, just garbage pile. But in one of these, I gotta take the time to write fluently. I gotta take all the time to write with graphite. So anything I put in here is going to be concrete, and then anything in here is going to go up there onto the board to solidify the idea. Okay, so I'm doing some world building right now to set up that foundation so I can visualize the environment that the characters are going to be in as I'm writing the story. So I was thinking I want the story to be in a more primitive state, but I don't want to write it all the way back then. Instead, it's going to be a bit of a post-apocalyptic, dystopian sort of society. I want to stray away from pretty much the whole plague sort of storyline, because I think that's overdone. It doesn't interest me at all. I don't think I need an actual reasoning why society has crumbled, at least not in this episode. What I do have to think about is how the characters act in this sort of environment. The characters have to be built in a way where it fits in that setting. So their beliefs have to be based around the world rather than being too complex based around urban settings or sort of modern ideals. It really has to be, you know, sticks and stones with what they believe in. So I'm building the story now to fit around a dual protagonist. So that means it's going to be 2 different characters that are taking the spotlight. Building the characters this way, this is what's going to make the story work, because they believe in similar things, but they also don't share all the same beliefs. They're different, but they're the same. They provide different viewpoints of the world to each other, which is pretty much what the story's about. If I had to guess how the outcome of the story is going to be, I think it would be interesting to do a flip. So by the end of the story, they believe in what each other believe in. At the end of the story, Iris might believe that you have to be ruthless if you want to survive in the world, or Blake could realize that that isn't entirely true. I think that would be interesting. Yeah, so that's just clear-cut example. Build your characters similar and different to provide conflict, but also have a dynamic that just works on screen.
It would be a lie if I told you creating external conflict is what I excel at, because that is far from the truth. Creating external conflict is my weakest link of the foundation process, to the point where many of the screenplays I've wanted to write in the past have been put back on the shelf simply because I couldn't think up an antagonist. But that was not an option here, so I had to return to the basics. The wound influences their beliefs influence their need influences their want, and their want influences the external conflict, making the antagonist. After a bunch of brainstorming, I figured it out. I found the missing link. Blake lives in a world motivated by violence. Blake believes that in order to survive, he needs to be as violent as the world requires him to be. This is what Blake thinks will help him overcome his wound. But really, it's the lie he believes. What Blake really needs is to overcome his survivor's guilt by accepting that the things in this world happened for no reason at all. Unaware of this truth, Blake pursues violence in the story, what he wants. This gave me one option, one way to show Blake that he was living the lie. Have an antagonist that represents everything that's wrong with the world. Have a group acting as a force of nature representing his own beliefs. That left me with the idea of the prophets.
I'm getting very orange. So the same thing applies when you're writing antagonists though. They still need to have wants. If they go through a change, they have a need. I don't want them to go through change. I just want them to die. Like all of them. They're just all going to die. Therefore, they have no need. They don't change, so they don't have a need. It's like a flat arc. But they do have a want, and that want is to spread their belief. They want other people to believe in the same thing that they do. They want to enlist more members. They want to spread this whole religion concept. That's their want. Have no need, no change.
The prophets are a primitive cult that believe the world demands them to be violent. They believe the event that caused the downfall of society was divine intervention demanding violence of the world. They believe that their entire purpose is to act out God's will by being everything that's wrong with the world. But I had chosen to go one step further, because this group alone wouldn't be enough to convince Blake to reflect on himself. I needed someone that stood above the prophets. They needed a leader that is the exact reflection of Blake. That leader is Ivan. Ivan is the leader of the prophets, the originator of the ideology. In common with Blake, he believes the world demands violence. In common with Blake, this is the lie he tells himself because he needed a reason for the loss of his family. Having this character provides the opportunity for Blake to see exactly what he's becoming, what he could become if he doesn't stray from his beliefs, and the damage he could cause the world around him. Whether he makes this change is left up for interpretation. And that's where the idea of the story solidified. I had my premise. I was going to tell a story that followed Blake, Iris, and a crew of hunters searching for a missing hunting party. As time passes, they get closer to finding them, but they don't find them in the state they wanted. They're mutilated, dead, now left with an unknown enemy. Blake and Iris fight to survive. By the end of the episode, the series will kick off with the decimation of Iris's home, leaving her well and truly alone.
Okay, so we are back. It is another day since we went over all this, and I'm gonna be straight up honest. I had to go diagram crazy to flesh out this plot line. I got half the board filled out now, which is about as far as I wanted to go. By the midway point, you typically get lost anyways, so I'm not so worried about that, because after spending a couple hours actually writing this thing, by the time I get to the midpoint, I'm gonna have a better understanding of what's going to happen after that. I'm gonna know the story inside and out, because I'm going to essentially be part of the story by that point. So let me show you what the board looks like now.
And we are back.
Okay, so this is what I've got. As you can see, I got Act 1 and then all the way to Act 2, Part 1. Act 2, Part 2 is still kind of clean. Act 3 is clean. I got some sticky notes here, but these sticky notes pretty much just are trying to get across the certain beats I want to happen in the story. So like by this point, he should get what he's looking in the story. This is when he should typically have a low moment. I have some key plot points that I'm pretty much I sort of have an understanding of what's going to happen, and that's all I want to know. But as for the first part, I do have a clear understanding of what's going to happen in here because I'm going to be writing it. So yeah, that is the board, or the board and a half the board. Yeah, half the board. Okay, let's go back. Okay, I should probably explain what of the process. I should probably explain what the process here was. So I got a basic understanding of what the story is just by making random jot notes, just brainstorming really. So like I got character brainstorms going on. I got that for every single main character and character group that's going to be part of this story. Not even part of this episode, really, because some of these characters don't show up until later parts in the series and we're only writing the first episode. And then we got basic conflict diagrams,
We got internal conflict diagrams. We got external conflict diagrams. Lots of diagrams. I went hard in diagrams. And then just basic structure brainstorms for all the different acts. So like act 1 takes up like a full page, and then I have a short description down here what I want to happen. Same thing for act 2A, just absolute brainstorm and then a short description of what I want to happen or what should happen by the end of the act. And I have one here for act 2B and act 3 just in case I get stuck and I do need to brainstorm it, but I don't think I will. I might, I don't know. And then story circles, more diagrams for the different acts, because I want to track the character beats and moments as I'm going through it, which don't always show up in like the scene headers on the board that I explained. And yeah, that's it. Crazy on the diagrams, and just go crazy on the diagrams. The diagrams are good. My desk right now is an absolute mess, but like, that's okay. Okay, so my plan for staying up this late is a damn good one. I'm not going to fall asleep. That's the entire plan. I got coffee. I got more coffee. I got delicious coffee. I got so much coffee. Oh my god. I got like coffee maker, just coffee everywhere. Drink some water, maybe, mostly coffee. 24 hours is a long time. Lots of coffee is going to be drank. That's my entire plan. I don't have any other plan besides drink coffee. Just lots of coffee. The deadline starts now. 24 hours is on the timer, and I needed to start writing. I'd be lying if I said it started off smoothly, because it didn't. Accustomed to my usual process of writing a few pages daily, I was spending too much time on each individual sentence, and less time on the overall page. By the end of the first hour, I had barely managed 2.5 pages, the minimum amount required each hour if I planned to finish on time. That's when I realized I had to switch up my method. Instantly within the second hour, I managed to enter a flow state. The caffeine, chewing gum, and subtle ambient music all adding together to speed up the writing process. I felt like I was able to remember what each page had on it, what each page was going to have written on it, and what I was currently writing all at the same time. And it proved to be vital, cranking out nearly 3 pages for every hour for several hours on end. Things were going well, they were going smoothly, and everything was good. Until it wasn't. We're at the 12-hour marker now. I got the timer set, and yeah, smooth sailing. 12 hours, 30 pages in, 2.5 pages every hour. It's going pretty smoothly, pretty consistently. I'm gonna take 15 minutes off the record to brew another pot of coffee. Go through a lot of coffee, which is fine. It's gonna take like 100 cups of coffee to kill me, and I've only had like 20, so we're not even close to that number. Smooth sailing. And food, gotta get some food. Food's very important. Some brain food, bananas and eggs. It'll be damn good. It's just a magical process. Coffee. Beautiful. Gorgeous, perhaps. Ooh. This is turning into a cooking channel real fast. But we're not a cooking channel, so like, we gotta get over this. This is the point I started getting stuck. I allowed myself to think about something other than the story, and my train of thought was completely halted. The scenes were ending too quickly, the story was wrapping up too soon. It was a flaw I couldn't keep ignoring. I had to go back and find the root of the problem. I needed to know what element was draining my story, so it could be corrected and I could carry on. It didn't take much digging before I was able to find it. That element was a lack of motivation. Blake's motivation was clear, for sure, but he wasn't the only character in this story. There are 4 other characters with a motivation as basic as they want to find their friends. That's not good enough, so I went back and added some lines to some scenes, then added entirely new scenes. From there, I was able to get back to writing the conclusion of the story. I could finally wrap up the episode with the hook of the series.
damn. God. Words aren't flowing so good right now. Like they did here, but currently exactly 3 minutes left on the timer. That is 24 hours. 24 hours and entire script, entire film. I was damn hard. I haven't slept in I can't even do basic math right now. I haven't slept in like well over 24 hours. Like 24 and then 12. 36 hours. Like, I'm going that right now. I'm gonna just film, like, description, all the good stuff. And yeah, thumbs up.
And with that, I was able to type the final blackout in the draft. I was able to complete the film 3 minutes to spare, mildly hallucinating, completely exhausted. By cranking out the first draft, I was able to manifest the story I'd been dreaming up for 3 years. Now it's physical. Now it's real. Now I have something I can reflect on and fix, refining each detail until it's perfect, and crafting it into something I thoroughly enjoy. And that is how I wrote a film in 24 hours. If you're curious about the first draft of The Last Breath, the complete unedited raw cut of it is in the description. Copyrighted by me. Don't catch a case. As always, comment down below to join the discussion, close those curtains and smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and thanks so much for watching.